All right, here we are. Cullen, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Dude, community conversations with Cullen, you guys. I'm kind of excited about this one because the timing worked itself out very interestingly, right? So it really
definitely
did. So you know what, man? A lot of times, we end up having it's kind of like reverse timelines, like, oh, where did you start? Mm-hmm. But right now, like we were just laughing about the way things got to be right now.
Yeah.
Let's start there and we'll go backwards. Okay. So how did you end up in Southern California from the Pacific Northwest?
Well, Southern California, I've been dreaming about this place for about 5 years.
Okay.
And I did a lot of planning. Originally, I was trying to come out here back in September of 19.
Okay.
But obviously, investment plans fell through because it was going to be a whole project, for Storytime with Cullen, right?
Yes.
And so all that stuff fell through. And then somehow, so a lot of people probably know that I do work at this rental place in Seattle. Like, we rent out exotic cars and stuff.
Yeah.
But basically what had happened was that it was snowing in Seattle.
Yes.
And we were like, okay, what if we, put some cars down to LA and rent them out there? Maybe we can make some money that way instead of just having the cars sit, right? And so originally I had to come out with that company and, we had about maybe a week's notice.
Okay.
And I was like, this is the third time I'm getting the opportunity to move out to SoCal.
Yes.
If I don't do it now, then it's never going to happen. Because
okay.
I'm 25,
Yeah.
I have a goal that I want to do before 30, and if I'm going to do it, I have to do it now. I have to make the sacrifices, I have to make the jump. And so before I came down, I actually snapped an axle because I had an argument with a friend, and I wasn't so happy. So I did a clutch dump at about 5K. And so I had a broken driver's side axle. And no one had the part in stock, and I didn't have enough time to get it fixed before I came down. So I sent it. I just drove down on one axle in my S2000.
So you just made the drive.
Yep.
How many hours?
It said 16 on GPS,
right.
But it was 23 hours because it was snowing from the Oregon NorCal border.
Okay, so in a wide-bodied, lowered S2000
yes.
with one axle broken,
yes.
You drove a 16-hour trip that took 23 hours because of snow.
Yes.
Because you got into an argument with a friend.
Yes.
And dumped the clutch and snapped the axle.
Yes.
Okay, so there are apparently some temper issues that are going on.
Okay? Definitely.
Okay, so you're from the Pacific Northwest, right? So yes. what a lot of people who are listening, they're not going to have any idea what Storytime with Cullen is. So we're going to get to that, right? And so you're down here in Southern California. You came down with a company you were working with, right? Or
yes.
for.
Yes.
Renting out exotic cars, right?
Yes.
And because of the weather in the Pacific Northwest, let's take them down to Southern California where the weather is good and rent them out. And aside from your actual car and that problem, you ended up having an issue with what you're doing with the rentals, right?
Yes, it's just it's a very complicated situation because obviously, businesses vary from place to place. So like the industry is different in Seattle versus compared to down here.
Yeah.
And so I'm very involved with like the Chinese car dealer community, and there's always a lot of drama. It doesn't matter what industry, what kind of culture it is, there's always going to be some drama.
Okay.
But it's just, I expected there to be drama down here, but when I actually got down here, I was like, okay, there are a lot of brokers.
Okay.
Between every deal between me and a client, there's about like 3 or 4 people. And so, things get lost in translation. It's like, that's one thing, okay, getting lost in translation, so between languages. And another thing is, he said, she said kind of stuff.
Okay.
So,
and this is all in the context of the exotic car rental?
Yes. Yes. So whether it's regarding, pickup times or what the customer wants or what pricing is or this and that, that's just some of the things that are, that go on. And everything gets like, it's not misinterpreted, but like lost in communication somewhere.
I see.
And so a lot of people probably think that I really enjoy the car industry. Like I enjoy cars, but I don't enjoy the industry itself because there's just, as you probably know, there's a lot of drama and, a lot of things that go on behind the scenes.
Okay, hold on. Elaborate on that just a little bit. When you say car industry, that's a massive, broad stroke. Is that what you mean, or are you referring to a certain niche?
No, it's a massive...
You're talking about across the board.
Yes, across the board.
Okay, so you like the scene, you don't like the industry.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't like working and having to do business and making money off of it because there's just so many factors. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a car sales, if you're dealing with like a car dealer, if you're doing rentals, if you're doing like even working at the factories or whatever. There's just many stories that I've seen, that I've experienced that just are really off-putting. But it's like that in any industry. There's a lot of things that, you know, happen behind the scenes that most people don't know about. You know,
Sure.
The grass is always greener on the other side. So this is kind of what I've learned. But in other industries, like, okay, in the photography industry, or if, you know, in the fashion industry, there's dark sides to that too.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe the problems aren't as, like, headachy, but maybe I just take it to heart too much because everything I do I like to take seriously.
Yeah.
So when problems arise, like my temper's gotten a lot better over the years, but sometimes like I just can't help it. Because I kind of personally I struggle with depression as well. That's something that if you're a fan of mine or if you're on my YouTube channel or whatever that I've talked about before, and I've struggled with that for about 7 years now. So sometimes I just can't help it. It just gets to me.
Okay.
But I try my best to not give an attitude to those around me and stuff. But sometimes I'll just not talk because that's the best way for me to not
stay to yourself.
Yeah.
Understood. So we've touched on exotics and car rentals and your unfortunately, presently acutely disdain for the industry, right?
Yes.
If we had to put it like that. But so we've talked about that, and then for the listeners, they're gonna hear all this stuff, and then they're gonna hear about your S2000 with the broken axle that you drove down here, and all this kind of stuff. Most of them are not gonna have any idea who Cullen is, right?
Yep.
So for the sake of that, right, describe yourself to the people who have absolutely no idea who this guest named Cullen is on Community Conversations.
So do you want me to start from like the very beginning?
You feel free. Go for it, however you so want to.
Okay, so my parents are from Hong Kong, so that's a city in China, and a lot of people from Hong Kong don't believe they're Chinese, but that's not what we believe because, well, we speak Chinese, right? So obviously we're Chinese. And so they immigrated to the U.S. back in the early 90s, and then after they went to Seattle, they had me, so about 3 or 4 years later. So
okay, straight from Hong Kong to Seattle.
Yes, straight from Hong Kong to Seattle. And so if they didn't come to America, they probably wouldn't have had me, because it's hard to raise a kid in Asia, especially with the living costs, the schooling, and whatever. But anyways, 1994, that's when Cullen showed up.
Okay.
Funny story, my dad almost named me Bugatti.
Like, really?
Yes. I don't know if it's really or a joke, but they've been talking about it for years, so I'm pretty sure he was legit about it.
Wow, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, it would have been.
If your name was Bugatti.
Bugatti Cheung in the house,
that's crazy, man.
But because my dad likes cars, so that's really where I got everything that I do now from. He likes photography as well, and this and that. And so a lot of the Chinese community here in the U.S. is not, they're not from Hong Kong. They're mainly like mainland Chinese.
Mainland?
So they speak
Okay.
Mandarin.
Yes.
So my family speaks...
You guys speak Cantonese.
Yes, we speak Cantonese.
Yeah.
So I didn't know Mandarin until about, I tried starting to learn it in about 14, 15. And then when I actually picked it up was 2017. And I didn't know how to read or write Chinese. I mean, I still don't know how to write, but I can type it out. So that was something that I picked up.
So you learned that as an adult?
Yes.
Okay, that's hard to do.
Because I didn't go to school. I didn't go to college because I didn't know what I wanted to do, right?
Did your parents make you go to Chinese school when you were a kid? Interesting.
Yeah.
For those of you guys listening that aren't Asian and have no idea what we're talking about, almost every Chinese family, they make their kid, after going to regular American school, they have Chinese school afterwards that teaches them how to, read and write the characters and the grammar and all of that kind of stuff. So many of and now for those of you listening, that's why some people wonder, like, why are Asian kids so smart? That's because it's A, in their genetics, and B, because their parents make them, okay? But a Cullen apparently did not have to go to Chinese school.
I didn't have to.
But I'm impressed because Cantonese and Mandarin, it's not similar in certain ways. So how did you learn it if you were only hearing Cantonese growing up?
Well, I learned to use my brain kind of like logically at some point.
All right.
Because there's a phonetic system for Chinese. So it's like, for example, me is 我. So W-O, that's how you type out that letter for I. So then it's all English on the bottom. So there's a corresponding English like lettering system for the Chinese. So that's how I learned it. So when I use Google Translate, I don't use it for the direct translation. I use it to see what the English word, like the English phonetics are on the bottom.
The phonetics.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I went about doing it. But then like the speaking part and like the listening part, you just have to go do it. Because I got laughed at a lot because people were like, "Oh, your Chinese is like really bad."
You mean when you were trying to speak Mandarin?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people know like my characters. I don't give a about a lot of things. So if you're scared of people laughing at you, and that's why you stop doing something, then you're never going to get good at it.
At anything.
Yeah. Because you can't let anyone get in your way of doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And so, I got laughed at a lot for a lot of things, back when I was younger. I got bullied when I was a little bit younger, back in like elementary and stuff too, here and there. And even now, being like quote unquote an internet personality or being on YouTube or whatever, there's people that leave bad comments. So
always.
Sometimes you just have to filter it out because.
Sure.
And, coming to LA was, like my goal in mind is that before 30, I want to be able to financially take care of my parents.
Okay.
Because they've given up a lot for me and my sister. I'm actually very lucky. The situation that I'm in, even no matter how bad it is, I can't blame anyone but myself.
Okay.
Because
you mean present day?
Yes, present day. Because financially I struggle because I don't really know how to manage my finances very well. And
Understood.
I'm not a very good 9-to-5 person. So obviously this image of being a photographer, sometimes wearing like luxury items, hanging around exotics, having my car, it's all just, a facade. I tell people like, this is where all my money is. Like however much you give me, I'll spend it. And so that's just kind of a part that I'm trying to change now because I know what my goal is for 30.
For 30, 25 now.
Yes.
Okay, so Hong Kong, parents come to Seattle, have you, your dad's into cars, that's how you get into cars, right? Okay, so you're getting older, graduate from high school, you don't go to college because you don't really know what you're trying to do, you're not a good 9-to-5 person. So when did you say, if you're high school, you're about 18, and right now 25, so only 7 years ago, at what point did you say, I want to get into photography and I want to start a YouTube channel?
So photography actually started back in 2011. So like I was talking about before, like my dad likes cars, right?
Yeah.
So I've liked cars for as long as I can remember. So whether it's exotics or JDM cars or European cars or whatever, my dad would kind of expose me to them.
Okay.
So I've always had a love for cars, not a certain genre.
Sure.
So because I know there's a lot of people where it's like they like my car. So whenever I post exotics, obviously I'll only get like 500 likes compared to like 2,000 on my car.
Sure.
And I understand that, but that's one thing that like being more understanding of other people's like passion is something that I feel is lacking.
Yeah.
But anyways,
you gotta think bigger.
Yeah, think bigger. And so my dad also liked photography.
Okay.
So he had taken a lot of photos of us as children growing up. And then, so actually that was another reason why I got into photography.
Okay.
But it was about 2010, 2011 when I was like in high school. It was like my freshman and sophomore year. I was like, okay, I want to see cool cars. How do I do that? I don't have any money to buy a cool car. I can't build a car. Can't necessarily work legally yet. So I don't have any money. My parents definitely aren't going to buy me a car.
Sure.
I had to figure out a way to, get my way into the car industry or whatever you want to call it, or the car scene.
Yeah.
And I thought photography was the way to do it.
All right.
And so my dad had a point-and-shoot camera he had laying around, and I would take pictures with that. Obviously, whenever you're starting out, you're gonna do it very bad.
Yeah.
So everything takes time. Everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah.
And then also at the same time, though, that was when Gran Turismo 5 first came out.
Okay.
And you can take photos in Gran Turismo, right? So that was kind of where I started like learning like shutter speed stuff. How to manage all like the ISO, this and that.
Okay, so you started learning the technicalities of photography from GT5?
Yes.
Interesting, from the video game.
Yes.
Oh.
Because just like there's a lot of things where it's like if you approach it logically, if you list it out like, okay, what do I need to learn first? Where should I start?
Yes.
And then that makes it easier. Because if you go in not knowing anything, you're kind of going to be like, oh, hey, like I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing.
Sure.
And so that kind of set the baseline. And then about a couple months after doing that, I had a good friend so his name's Kung. He had an MR2 at the time, it was an SW20. And he was a photographer. He was taking photos for a long time. And he had this Canon XTI laying around.
All right.
So that was almost 10 years ago, right? That camera came out, I think, in 2009.
Yeah.
It had 10 megapixels.
But he just let you use it.
No, he sold it to me for $100.
Okay.
And so my dad had an old Canon film camera that had an 18-105 lens that was like, it was super old school. But, I had to make do, right?
Of course.
And so I got to thank Kung a lot for that, because if he didn't sell me that camera for that cheap, I would have never started. Started.
Okay.
Because at the time when I first started, I was like, if I don't have good gear, I can't take good photos. But obviously that's wrong. I didn't know better at the time. I was young.
Sure.
And so from there on, I started going to like exotics meets in Seattle, or in the Redmond area, which is about 20 minutes away from Seattle.
Yeah.
Every Saturday in the summer, they would have a cars and coffee kind of deal.
Yeah.
I started taking photos there. Started, Instagram.
Just for yourself.
Yes, just for myself.
Practicing, but then you may post them on your personal Instagram.
Yep.
That was it at that time.
Yep. So at that time, Instagram just started getting, popular with everyone. And I would just post photos here and there, take photos of my friends' cars. Just started out like how a lot of people would start out.
Yeah.
And then I think it was around 2012 or 13 when I think there were a couple. So it was Stance Nation at the time. There's like Black Lives Car Lifestyle on Instagram. So people started reposting my photos, because during that time I started meeting some guys that had like a Voltex 350Z, a 370Z Powerhouse and Muse, that kind of thing. And the photos that I took of their cars were, got posted on Stance Station. I got tagged. That's when I started, like, the followers started rolling in.
Ah, I see.
So when I first began, most people actually knew me for my photography, not so much the car.
Okay.
Now it's kind of the other way around. Because I have a certain, like, I used to use a watermark, right? Because that was the thing, right? But from an artist's perspective, I think the watermark ruins the photo.
Okay.
But at the same time, now being, like, an entrepreneur or whatever you want to call it, I'm realizing that it's part of the personal brand. That's how people recognize my name.
Yes.
Is if I have it on the photo.
Well, especially now where, let's say you had developed a distinct tone. Let's say you liked it a little bit warmer and all these types of things that people are used to seeing. Nowadays, it's impossible to really differentiate, because there are so many people putting out photos that may be within the same visual spectrum or styling. And so, like you said, if you don't watermark it, only a very distinctive group of people with that kind of eye are going to know that, that's a Cullen shot. Yeah. Right? So you kind of have to. Yeah.
So, for me, I don't have this one style all across the board, because it depends on the car that I'm shooting.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if you guys know John Zubarek, so he's at Slow Progress on Instagram. He has a super clean E30 M3. It's had keys, it has BBSs. So it's one of my favorite E30s that I've seen.
Beautiful. It is beautiful.
And a funny quick story about that is that when I was in high school, I actually really liked BMWs.
Okay.
And so at the time, a lot of people were using Tumblr, and that's how I knew about John. I never thought 10 years later I would come and have sit down with John and do this.
Dude, the Tumblr and the Flickr days were great, man.
Yeah, I still use Flickr from time to time, but not as much now because I have too many things to manage, right? But anyways, for example, for his set of photos, we shot it in a hangar, and I distinctly edited it like a film photo. Yeah. Because I felt it was kind of period correct. Yeah. So that's how I like to go about shooting photos. It's like, if I'm in a certain environment, I get a certain vibe, then I want to put that certain edit or whatever on that photo. So I don't, back then I used to have a more distinct style. It was very cool, very dark. Yes. Which still...
those still look
relevant.
Cool. Yeah, it's very relevant.
Because that's more so my style, because I'm kind of a dark person, I guess. And
so it was those photos that of the JDM style cars, not exotics, that ended up getting reposted or tagged, and you got tagged on these large, massive, or at the time getting massive blogs. Yes. And so that's what started you in this niche of the import tuner world?
Yeah, because there's a little bit more to that, because that was when it first started, and I started meeting more people through those guys with the fair ladies with the 350 and 370s. Yeah. So I started getting to know the Chinese international student crowd. So for those that don't know, a lot of international students, whether it's from China or any of the other countries that come here, their parents have to have a good amount of money to support them financially out here. Yeah. There are those select few individuals that do work hard and figure out their way to survive. But yeah, majority of them are, as we can call them, rich kids. Sure. And so at the time I had met a bunch of them there was one guy that had a wide body NSX. It was one of the old Science of Speed cars. There was George, one of my good friends now, who had a Powerhouse and Muse R35 at the time. Okay. And so I started going to track days with them. That's when I started to learn more Chinese because I realized, oh, some of these kids can't speak English.
And they can't speak Cantonese. It's
Yes.
only Mandarin.
Yes.
Ah, I see. So that's how you started to learn it.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, so how am I going to communicate with these people?
Sure.
Because at that time I was like, okay, so if I can speak another language, that means I opened up another community in which I can interact with, make friends with, and obviously even do business with.
Yes.
And so I thought it would just be beneficial for me to learn that language.
Okay.
And obviously I'm Chinese, so why not?
Sure.
And then from there, I think it was Sam Du from Super Street had reached out to me back in 2013, I think, to shoot a Voltex Evo. It was a Cyber Evo at the time.
Okay.
And then that white NSX. So those were the first two features that I shot for Super Street back in the day. And that's how I got to know Sam, because Sam is originally from Seattle as well.
Yeah.
So I guess I have to thank Sam, because if he didn't give me that chance, I wouldn't have been into Super Street, and I wouldn't have been able to meet the people that I know today.
Sure.
So there's actually a lot of people that I'm grateful for, because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be able to be where I am today.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you think back about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you get your photos published, you get paid. It's a paid gig. You get these cars featured in the premier, import tuning magazine. And so what happened after that? Did you just say, I want to be a freelancer? Or when did you say, I want to start doing specifically my own stuff in addition to freelancing?
Well, freelancing was just... So, obviously at the time when I was freelancing, I didn't make much money because the industry is so saturated,
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand the value of photos. They don't understand your personal value, and they don't cherish your time. So a lot of people are cheap, And at the time, there were a lot of people coming up that were like, oh, I'll do free photo shoots, which obviously ruins the industry for everyone.
Sure.
So nowadays, everyone's a photographer, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I realized that photography wasn't going to get me where I wanted to be. So during that time, I had also... worked some 9-to-5s. I worked at Target before.
Okay.
I worked at a zoo. I've worked at a restaurant. I've done delivery in my old S2000.
Yeah.
So I've delivered food in my old wide body S2000.
Okay.
That was one of the funner things. But so I've done a lot of stuff here and there. I've also back home in Seattle, there were a couple shops that I worked for free.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that will take advantage of you. They'll say, we'll help you do this, do that.
Yeah.
And obviously that's when you realize it's BS.
Sure.
And so obviously I took the loss. I took it as a lesson. And yeah, those people just didn't pay a single dime, There's a lot of times where they want to take advantage of you, but they don't want to, help you make sure that you're good.
Well, I mean, what you just said is people who are willing to take from you and not give to you is what you just said?
Yes.
That's the majority of people in almost any context of life. I mean, that's hard, dude. Socially, business, everyone's trying to get without giving.
But I think a gift that was given to me was that, like Jerry, so JC, he's one of the homies back home. He said that I have a certain charisma to me.
Okay.
And what I feel that I'm pretty lucky to have is that a lot of people are willing to open up to me. They feel that I'm very chill and laid back and that they can trust me.
Okay.
And so around me, I have so many friends that give and don't need anything from me.
Okay, so you found yourself surrounded by quality people.
Yes.
That's a big blessing.
And so that's why right now it's like, obviously money this thing. Everyone needs it, to live, to pay your expenses and stuff.
Yes.
But for me, money is already irrelevant because I've dealt with, I'm in this high-end like business or whatever. I've seen everything, What I have, money can't buy. So for everything else, why I want money is so that I can do the things I want with the people that I love. We don't have to worry about it financially or whatever.
Yes.
Just go wherever we want. Just enjoy life.
So that's what I mean. That's kind of the pinnacle of that would be something like being able to take care of your parents.
Yes.
I mean that is a monetary as much as it is a philosophical angle. So you're talking about monetarily, you want to be able to take care of them so that they don't have to labor anymore.
Yeah,
right?
Well, one thing is that I wanted to make sure that these next couple of years were the time that I'm just going to work and do everything I need to do within the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Because aside from monetarily taking care of them, right? I want to be able to have time to spend with my parents too.
Yes.
Because, we have to face the fact our parents aren't going to be with us forever.
Right.
And so I want to have, I want to let them have the best last years or last however many years of their lives enjoying it with their son. They're always going to love me. I'm always their little baby, right?
Okay.
Me and my sister, and I just want to go do the things that I wanted to do with them when I was young.
Yes.
And nowadays, I realize that the happiest times of my, in my childhood were when my parents spent time with me.
Yeah.
They had to work a 9 to 5, they had to do this and that. There are a lot of things that I had kind of blamed them for when I was younger, but I was a kid. I didn't understand how the world worked.
Sure.
And so now looking back at it, like, for example, like Jordans, back in school, everyone had a pair of Jordans.
Okay.
I wanted a pair. I asked my parents if we can go buy a pair. When I looked at them, it's like $200 a pair, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know $200. It was hard to make $200.
Sure.
I didn't understand what it took for that. And so my parents, turned me down on that, and I was mad. And then after I started making my own money, I was like, well, $200 is it's certainly not easy to make. And so now I kind of understand where my parents are coming from.
Sure.
And I had understood how much they had given up for me.
Yeah.
And so now I just realized that I was just too immature. I was a child.
Okay.
And so now I just, and it's a different generation nowadays. The times are different. The ways you can make money, college isn't a necessity. My parents never forced me. To do anything. So I'm actually very grateful and very lucky because a lot of parents force their kids to go to college, They're like, if you don't go to college, we're going to disown you or whatever. And so now, that's why, like, the things I have, money can't buy. I drive a Honda, I drive a S2000, right? I'm hanging around people who have millions, billions of dollars.
Yes.
Who drive these cars.
Yes.
How much money you have doesn't represent your value.
Sure. Well, that right there, you're touching on something that I think a lot of people inadvertently flat out miss.
Yes.
Is that money and value are very relative.
Yes.
That's like the people who argue about the resale market of shoes or cars, right? You have a blue book, but you have a market value.
Yes.
Like you take like John's BMW, right? His M, the blue book is one thing. What it's actually worth, or market value, street value, is a whole different number, right? A substantially different number for a lot of things, like NSXs and Porsches and whatnot. So that's more of like an intangible object, but broadly in the concept of value, all money is paper that provides you the opportunity or the ability to do something, right? Whether that be feed yourself, put gas in your car, buy a plane ticket to go do something. And I think a lot of people, they don't realize they're focusing on the money, not on what they were supposed to do with it. Like, what am I going to do with it?
Yes.
Who am I going to take care of with it?
Yes.
It's not what they're going to do with it, it's it. They're thinking about money.
Yes.
And money has as much value as you give it. So, I mean, I'm kind of the same way, man. I mean, I relate to that on a very real level because, if you go back before there was an item that you held in your hand, whether it be paper or gold, that was considered money, people bartered and traded.
Yep.
I will work to get this. I will do this to eat. And that was the way the world worked. And then until they came up with this system of money. But I mean, it's all about value. What are you trying to do, or what were you trying to do? Are you trying to eat? Well, if you clean this, wash that, build that, then you get food.
Yes.
Right? Now people are like, I don't want you to give me the food. I want to do it. I want you to give me the money, and I want to have the ability to spend it and then not have money for food.
Yes.
Right? So people got it all kind of mixed up. So I think it's really cool that you are at that point now. I'm a lot older than you, so to hear this type of perspective from a relatively younger person, it's a very great thing to hear, you know. But you touched on that. You said you're around people that are wealthy and X amount of millions or billions, but like we touched on when you were younger, you were getting into photography, you end up going to these exotic cars, right? So you've been around these exotics for such a long time, aside from their numerical expenditure to get. How did you end up choosing to have an S2000, and instead of just having one, doing all the things you did to it?
So back when I was in high school, I didn't like Hondas.
Yeah.
Because obviously at the time, everyone else around me, we're all kids. We don't have that much money.
Right.
So a lot of them were ratted out Civics.
Yeah.
That had fake wheels. Rotas were very popular at the time. And so they were slow. They were like, D series motors that just had a far can on it. So I had a very bad and misinterpreted image of what Hondas actually were.
Okay.
And so came the day that my brother-in-law was talking about buying an S2000. Because his friend had a 2008 CR in Apex Blue Pearl.
Okay.
And so...
It's nice.
Yeah. I didn't understand the value of that car at the time, though.
Okay.
When he first said Honda, I was like, oh, that car is it's a rice...
Sure.
It's a rice car. And after he brought it by, it took me for a ride, and he had let me driven it after that. And after that, it was S2000. I just couldn't get away from the car.
Okay, so riding in or driving that CR, you got hooked.
Yes, because my dad used to drive manual.
Okay.
So one of the stories he tells is that when I was younger, when I was in the baby seat, if he came to a stop, I would start crying. So we would have to sort of ride the clutch a little bit back and forth to let it go forward and roll back.
Understood.
To kind of cradle me and keep me to shut up.
Okay.
And so I think that's where I got my connection to manual cars from.
Okay.
Because I personally I love manual cars.
Yes.
Even in LA traffic, like I'm still driving my car. I don't care.
Sure.
I've daily driven my S2000s for about 5-6 years now.
Yeah.
And doing it up like this was because back in high school, I saw a photo on Tumblr.
Yeah.
It was a Powerhouse Amused GT1 car, which was also featured in Gran Turismo.
Okay.
And then there was a Jay's Racing Type GT.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that the Type GT kit actually came out a very long time ago. And there were two of them in Australia. The Amuse was white, the Jay's was yellow. And they were both track cars at the track in Australia. And I saw that photo. I was like, dude, those kits are both dope.
Yeah.
They both had C28Ns.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's the way I'm going to do it if I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And so it was, I think 2014 or 15 when I first bought my first car.
Okay.
Originally, I was going to buy an NSX because I really loved the NSX. Right?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to skip over that 2000 because I was like, it's going to be too much money. But here we are.
Yeah.
But anyways, my cousin had sold me a SW21 MR2, so that's a second generation. It was a hardtop NA car. He sold it for me very cheap. And then my brother-in-law's brother had helped me out to get the car to the way that I wanted it. Repainted it, put a wing on it, put some wheels on it, did a 240Z flares.
Okay.
I think it was a Gretty style front lip and side skirts.
Okay.
Cut the bumper in half, and then about after a month of having that car, I was approached by this one person that I had followed on Instagram. So he had a Powerhouse Amuse S2000. So I originally wanted to shoot the car for Super Street.
Okay.
When the car was finished. But he approached me and he was like, hey, do you want to sell your MR2? I said, if it's not for S2000 money, if it's not for NSX money, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I only have a Powerhouse Amuse S2000 to trade. And I was like, is this a joke?
He wanted to trade?
Yes. And I told him, I was like, I don't have any money to give you on top. Mm-hmm. He's like, I don't care. I just want someone to take care of it. And originally the plan was to take care of that car. But I think me and that car just didn't have any, it wasn't meant.
Okay.
It wasn't meant to be. Because I had a lot of bad luck with it, but we'll get to that later.
So you traded straight up?
Yeah. So I thought about it for a little bit. About, 3 hours later, title in hand, car was mine. So that car had a Powerhouse Amuse wide body. It was the last one before the Amuse founder had passed away.
Okay.
So that was the version 1 bumper where the exhaust did not come out of the bumper.
Yes. In the rear.
Yeah, in the rear.
Yeah.
So it came out on the bottom.
On the bottom.
But that car had SBC RPF 1s, 1810.5 plus 15, had some brand new Hankook RS3s. Car was fully gutted. It had a replica hardtop at the time. And then what else about that car? So one thing that I made the deal that I thought it would work for me was that car had JRZ RS Pros. So if you guys don't know, JRZ is a high-end suspension company from the Netherlands. So they're about the same level as Moton and the other race suspension companies. So that suspension alone was $5,000.
Yeah.
And the body kit itself was another $5,000.
Yes.
And so, and the wheels, a couple grand, $2,000 with the tires or whatever.
Yeah.
Had an APR wing that was mounted to the quarter panel. It's not the trunk.
Oh, okay.
So that car took some work to get to where it was.
Yeah.
But anyways, if I parted the car out, I would have made a profit. Sell the motor, sell the chassis. It all worked out. But the car ended up having no issues. I got it with around 80,000 miles. It was a 2003 AP1.
Okay.
And so AP1s are still my favorite, even though I have an AP2 now. But it is what it is. And then so from there, after I had the car, I had gone out to a mountain cruise with some of my friends. And some dude with another S2000, it was a stock S2000 at the time, he had rear-ended me. Literally not too long after.
In the cruise?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, cruising. Yeah, he had rear-ended me, because he was
okay.
He was kind of pissed about it. Probably pissed that I had the Amuse and I was taking the spotlight from him. And so from there...
Oh, you think he did it on purpose?
Yeah, because I think he was trying to show me up.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, whatever. So from there on out, like I stayed kept my distance from those people.
Yeah.
And then after that, I had gotten the car repainted because obviously his insurance had to pay for him, and me.
Yeah.
So we got the car repainted in a Rosso Mars. So Rosso Mars is the Lamborghini red. And then from there, I changed the wing out to a Voltex wing. My brother-in-law's brother helped me with a lot of it.
Okay.
And then we changed the seat out for a Recaro SPG. We changed out the steering wheel and the quick release to work spell stuff. And then the car was red and black.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where it all began. And then not too long after that, I was in downtown Seattle. I was taking my first ex-girlfriend to Nordstrom's.
Okay.
And then a work truck had backed into the front bumper and cracked it.
Oh, okay.
And so I never fixed that because I was poor at the time. I was,
Yeah.
a 19-year-old kid. I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to go through insurance to, pay that deductible and have them fix it. Because I didn't really know how things worked back then.
Okay.
I didn't want to ask anyone because I really don't like bothering people about things that I could look up on the internet.
Sure.
But then again, things on the internet, we can't be for sure about it. And so that was the first incident.
Okay.
And then from there, we took off the Voltex wing, sold it, because we ordered the swan neck that I have now. So it's still the same swan neck. And while I was waiting for it, one day I went to go to a restaurant in downtown Bellevue. The driveway was flat. I went in there, and then, right when I hit the driveway, just tore the front splitter off. It just snapped it clean in half.
Okay.
And I went back and looked at the driveway, and it was flat. I still don't know what happened to this day.
Like how it just hooked it and pulled it off?
I went in at an angle, too.
On a flat driveway?
Yes.
That does not make any sense.
Yeah, so I've taken this car to the same driveway.
Yes.
No issues.
Fascinating.
Yes, so I have no idea what happened. So the car was splitterless, wingless for a while, had a cracked front bumper that had duct taped with red duct tape.
So it was just getting beat up.
Yeah, and that was within the span about the first 3 or 4 months of having that car.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you can tell that's that's some great luck with that car. And so anyways, that car we kept going, at the time I didn't have money and Amuse would take too long to get me the bumper.
Okay.
So I'd actually purchased 2 Duraflex bumpers to put on the front because that's why it was unpainted at one point because it was a Duraflex bumper, which I told people it was a Duraflex bumper. And I had destroyed one of them, and then I had destroyed the next one.
How?
So the first one, what had happened was I had bought the Voltex World Time Attack canards.
Okay.
I had made a splitter for it underneath the Amuse bumper. And that day I was driving back from Alki. So Alki is our beach cruise spot in Seattle. And that day it was raining super hard.
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, and it was raining super hard and there was a lake of water on the road.
Okay.
I saw it slowed down to about maybe 20.
Yes.
I hit it and then just water all over the windshield, snapped the bumper and the canard and everything, just everything in half.
What?
It tore the rear Amuse bumper that's chassis mounted, right?
Yes.
It tore the rear welds off because there was just so much water. Because, hitting water at 20 miles an hour is still no joke because water is, when you hit it, it's solid.
I mean, how much water could there have been?
There was a lot of water.
Wow, okay.
And so through that incident, that had cracked the radiator. I put the next Duraflex bumper on the front. And then, let me see, what had happened in between. So, I was going to eat dinner with my friend at a bar.
Okay.
And then I was sitting in the car, and there's just this Asian girl in her little Kia Soul comes and sideswipes me while I'm in the car.
Wait, was she trying to park or something?
Yes. And I'm sitting in the damn car. I'm like, dude, are you serious?
Okay, so for those of you listening right now, nobody can say anything about him saying something about an Asian female bad driver because he's Asian and it happened to him. Okay, so the stereotypes are real for a reason.
Yeah, and she got out. She's like, "Oh my god, how much is it?" I was kind of over the car at that point.
Okay.
I was like, "Whatever, don't worry about it." She's like, "Oh, how about I buy you a drink?" I'm like, I don't even want to talk to you.
So you didn't ever go through insurance?
No, because I was over the car. I was ready. So
she didn't pay for it. You just let it be.
I just let it be because I wanted to.
Stop it.
So I wanted to buy this Jay's Racing kit for that car.
Okay.
But because this kit was used, so we'll get to that a little bit later. But anyways, I just let it be, and then we. One day I went to my friend's house. It was in the wintertime. So I run back home. I run 200 treadwear or R compounds all season. I run it all year round. Okay. And so that time I went to my friend's house. They live on Cougar Mountain, which is the top of a hill. It's a little bit of east of Seattle. And when I was leaving, it was a 90-degree right-hand corner.
Okay.
There was a curb on the other side, directly where I was going. And I saw this white stuff on the ground. I thought it was ice. Or no, I thought it was salt to melt the ice.
Okay.
Because it was super white. It was only that patch. So I was like,
Yes.
okay, maybe it was this house that, just threw out a bunch of salt.
Yes.
When I got into it, I hit the brakes. I was like, oh, here we go.
It was ice.
It was ice. And I was on 88 hours. It doesn't matter what tires it was on.
Yeah.
Unless it was on, like, studded tires. I'm not going to stop. And then I was just looking at it. I was like, turn the steering wheel. I'm not going to do anything. I saw a tree and a curb. I was like, here we go. And then pop. And that was it. So we destroyed the front driver's side headlight bracket, split the bumper, destroyed the splitter again, and broke a control arm. And yeah, that was that. That was the last string. And I just let the car sit because I'm done with it. I'm not going to fix it anymore.
Okay.
It's just me and this car seriously don't get along.
Yeah.
And my dad had mentioned, like, he was like, maybe seriously you and this car just don't have any. You guys aren't just meant to be.
Okay.
And then so there was a span of about 3 months where I didn't have a car. I was trying to figure out what I wanted next. And I thought about an R32 GTR. One of my friends back home in Seattle, well, he's in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Yeah. He was selling an R32 for really cheap.
Okay.
And I was considering it, but I knew that if I didn't have an S2000, I would regret it.
Okay.
Because
you just loved it so much.
Yeah. I can't be without an S2000. And so at the time, the current car I have now, it was a stock car. So my friend had bought it when I had the Amuse, and he bought it with the intention of building it as a track car. It was a 2004 Grand Prix white with a red interior. Bought it from San Fran, and then it was basically all stock. And then helped him choose parts, do it up. He spent a lot of money on the car. There was about on the model list is about $40,000 in terms of parts and labor, paint and this and that. And so I had taken the car off his hands he originally wanted to sell it to me for $30,000. I bought it for $29,000 because I helped him sell his M4 exhaust or something.
And what you're talking about, the current car you have?
Yes, the current car. So it was actually my friend's car that I kind of helped him, gave him input and kind of helped him build.
Yes.
And so I kind of knew the car, a majority of it, because I knew what parts and stuff went into it.
Yeah.
All
right, so you felt more comfortable buying it because you
Yes.
knew what went into it.
Yes. The car was abused on track.
Yeah.
That's what the car's meant for. It's an
Sure.
S2000,
But in the midst of all of this, right? In the
Yes.
midst of these accidents you were having, which any one of those could have been way more disastrous.
Yes.
Right? So let's be grateful about that,
Uh-huh.
Going down a mountain, ice, you could have been hurt, substantially. But okay, so where in all of this, right, are you saying to yourself, I want to make a YouTube channel?
That actually happened back in about 2015.
Okay.
Well, 2013 was when I first made a YouTube channel, just to post random videos of exhaust clips and stuff.
But yeah, when did you start wanting to be active with it and push it?
2015. That was when I first did a couple of vlogs. But at the time, it was that thing again where it was like, if the work I'm putting out is not good enough, then I'm not going to put it out.
Yes.
Which is wrong, because the more you do something, the more you put it out, then you can see your own progress, and the more you can improve at it. Because if you never do it, you're never going to get to where you want to be.
So let's kind of talk about that, because that right there is something that is applicable across the board. It doesn't matter what it is. People sometimes don't realize that the idea that I need to get it right first, I need to excel first, is completely wrong.
Yes.
Right? You have to go out there and do it. It doesn't matter what that may be. Go out there, go about it badly. Get learn your lessons, make your mistakes, but do it in an active fashion, and you will progress. So whether that be content or whether that be anything in life, right? Yeah. I completely think that gets slightly undervalued. That premise is that especially now, let's say someone's into photography, right? They're seeing so many gorgeous images everywhere, because before it was like the best guys made it onto the big blogs we talked about, and so you saw their photos, and it wasn't just the lens and the body that they had. There was framing, and there was angles, and there was some beautiful stuff. And so I can see now how other people might say, well, I mean, there's so many photos out there, why would I try? Well, that's the reason why there's so many photos out there, because there's other people who are just putting it out there.
Yep.
And ideally the point of that is to get better.
Yep. Yep.
But if you don't put it out there, then you're never gonna catch up because you haven't even started yet.
Yep.
Right? So even though you started in 13 but really started, kind of pushing it forward in 15, when did you realize that was something that you wanted to actually kind of like really keep developing to make any form of income or a name for yourself on YouTube?
That was really... So 2017, I had another try at it.
Okay.
But then it broke off again because of the Amuse. In Seattle, it's hard to have content. It's not like California here. It rains, obviously struggling with depression. The weather only made it worse. And so I was very unmotivated. And I just let it go for a little bit. And back in the beginning of 2019, I kind of like just pushed it. I was like, okay, we got to do it. I have no excuses now.
Okay.
I work at this exotic car rental. I have this S2000 now. I know so many people. There's no way for me to not do it now.
Okay, so that was 2019.
Yes.
All right. So what kind of growth did you get in 19?
In 19, it was just more so me pushing myself to make videos. But then at the same time, like I grew up so much over the years. I matured so much over the years. I didn't want to do anything that was just like any other YouTuber, I'm not really in it more so for the money. I just hope that I can, in my own fashion, make this world a better place.
Yes.
I want to be able to, like, a lot of things that I'm talking about now, it's advice to people who are younger, or it's advice to people who haven't been through it before or want to get into it.
Yes.
Because that way, like, you don't have to go through the lessons and go through the hardships that we went through. Obviously, you're still going to have to face some hardships here and there, but that's part of the growing process. And that's, through that, that's how I started Storytime with Cullen, because there's so many people that have helped me out, helped me grow up, helped me build a car, helped me do things that I was like, everyone has a story. What everyone sees is like, oh, Cullen has an S2000 now, he drives exotics, he takes great photos, but no one knows the story of how I got started and how much it took. It's been 10 years. It took me 10 years to get here, which I think is still nowhere. And so there's a lot of people like that, there's a lot of, like, okay, Elon Musk, you have, all these like Jack Ma, all these people who are billionaires now, right? But no one knows what their story was, what it took them to get where they are. Maybe it was easy for some, maybe it wasn't for others.
Sure.
So I think that everyone has a story. Everyone's life is different.
Exactly, man.
You're the main character in your own story.
Yeah, exactly. I think that you're touching on the gold, the gold of it, because, the whole premise of community conversations is to have a conversation with a member of the community and learn not just about them, but learn from them.
Yes.
And that's what you just did right there. I mean, a lot of people sort of think it has to be some epic major figure, an investor that owns half of the world, right? Or a famous actor or something. And sometimes it doesn't have to be some grandiose epic figure. It could just be the guy next door, right? And you're speaking at your level of experience at your age of 25. Then, you got my age, the people who came before me. There are so many tiers and generations and layers. And now we're speaking to the next one, right? I mean, the demographic that listens to the Think Bigger podcast is actually quite diverse, ranging from teens to 50s and 60s. But there are going to be a solid amount right now who are hearing these words that you just said, and it's seeping in a real way. And I think that you hit the head right there. It's where are you trying to go, and what are you willing to do to get there? Because it is not an Insta/gram world. It's not instant. And that's the toxicity of social media.
Yes.
Is it makes you think that kind of stuff happens quickly. And in, like you said, 10 years, 15 to 25. And where are you going to be in 10 more, But like you said, it took you 10 years to get here, and you feel like I got 10 years forward and I'm still nowhere. And people have to be okay with that.
Yes.
Right? You have to be able to be okay with putting in a lot of effort and a lot of time to get to just one step forward, because that's where most people quit. Because they're exhausted and they're like, oh, I can't keep doing this. Then it's not for you, because there are other people who are going to keep going. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why have you gotten yourself to the point where you now felt the need to create Storytime with Cullen, right? You said you wanted to thank people, but why else did you make Storytime?
Because I'm a pessimist. I'm not very optimistic. Obviously, one reason is being that I have depression. Another reason is just that's kind of what I experienced from the world, it just made me think that way. So I'm like, okay, if I'm Instagram famous or whatever, if I have people that look up to me, if I have influence over them, then why can't I help them grow? And because if they excel, that means there's one more person that's going to make the world a better place.
Yes.
Because, there's a lot of things that, I want to talk about, like value, right? Look at yourself as a pencil. If you give a pencil to me, what am I going to do with it? Maybe sign my name, maybe scribble some stuff. It's all stuff that's relatively worthless, I'm not like signing big checks or whatever, right? But then you give it to an artist, he could be the most famous artist in the world. His paintings, his drawings could sell for millions, billions, So think of yourself as a pencil. You need to find people that know your value. And one reason why I came out to LA was because there aren't enough people who understand my value in Seattle. And another reason is that being in LA, there's just so much more exposure. Because it's going to sound arrogant, but I want everyone to know who I am and know my story, know my name, because this way I can become a platform to share other people's stories. Mm-hmm. I can show the world that, there's so many interesting people here. Yeah. Be more compassionate, be more understanding. And, a lot of people, like, about money, they get it wrong, Like, they think that, I want to show up in a Lamborghini and I want to flex. Like, what I think is that the right way to go about it is become a person of value. So it doesn't matter what car you're driving. Sure. You can show up to any event and you are the flex because you've accomplished, things in your life. Mm-hmm. You've made the world a better place, or you've achieved your dream or whatever. So that's kind of how I want to put it. It might sound arrogant, but, a lot of people think about it wrong. They think money is where your value's at. No, it's not.
Right. It is not. No.
And so, especially the younger generation, you see this stuff on social media, you see this stuff on,
what people
TV
are
shows.
driving, what they're traveling, what they're wearing, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's all objects, man.
Yeah, it's all, from a perspective's point of view. Like, I tell people this all the time, I don't care where you come from, who you are, how much money you have, or how much money your family has, or whatever. As long as you treat me like a nice person, I'll treat you the way you treat me. Because that's how it should be, right? So that's why I don't look down on anyone because I'm nothing special, A lot of people treat me like I'm some super famous person or whatever, if you hit me up, if you see me, say hi. I'm going to talk to you like you're my friend because at the end of the day, we're all just people. When we die, we're all going to be in the same coffin or whatever.
Yeah, man, what you said about this premise of wanting to give people their moment, right? Mm-hmm. Story time and, thanking people that helped you, but also to show individuals and their stories and whatnot and make the world a better place. I mean, that sounds so obvious. There are going to be people who be like, obviously we should make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. But actively doing it versus talking about it versus thinking about it versus passively, right? It's a very big difference, right? And that's kind of the entire reason that the Think Bigger project came to exist for that same thing, because I got to this point where, we're talking about cars, right? Yes. So my cars were on the cover of the magazines, right? I was winning these different awards, and it got to the point where without me even wanting it, I was in the forefront. People were looking. Yes. And then when you have social media, people are now not just following the car. In fact, some of them aren't even following the car. They're following you as a person.
Yes.
And so, there's that point where you have to come to the realization that with great power comes great responsibility. And if you're going to put your stuff publicly, right? And you know that that's going to have an effect on people, it behooves you to do the right thing. It behooves you to be a proper example. There are many people who say, well, I don't care, I'm just going to be me. That's such a convenient response when you are also simultaneously putting your life in the limelight.
Yes.
You're a reality TV star who does the most fucked up things, right? Idiotic things that create such a bad example, and your answer is, well, I'm just gonna be me, while simultaneously making money, showing the world what you do. If you were just gonna be you don't have to make that public, right? So it's a very convenient thing. But this premise that you're talking about, how you want to help an individual better themselves, because when an individual betters themselves, they can then better other people around them. You can't help other people if you can't help yourself. So that's an amazing thing that you're talking about, and I'm always about that, because if everyone's trying to help each other, that's how you can not just help a community or a culture survive, you help it thrive. Right? And so I think that that's really, really dope that that's what you're doing. So we've gotten to this point now where you're putting out story time with Cullen. They're coming out wonderfully, right? I know you've got other people lined up. The premise of what you're doing with it, right? Where do you want to go with it from here?
I mean, from here, like, it's wherever, like, life takes me. Because besides story time with Cullen, there are many other ways that I'm trying to, or many other things that I'm doing. I want to have, since Super Street, kind of, they're not doing print anymore, right?
Sure.
I want to do my own magazine, so it's going to be a quarterly magazine. But, like, I think we talked about it at the Anaheim meet, where it was like, I want to feature the car owner more so than the car. Because, for example, like your car, you were talking about you winning awards and here and there. So I knew your name, Mike, and I knew your car.
Yeah.
I didn't know what you looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about you personally. So I was just like, okay, that's a dope car.
Yeah.
And then I know the owner's name is Mike.
Yeah.
I don't know who he is. And then when I started knowing more about you was, I think when you came up to Seattle and then I started realizing what you were doing with the Think Bigger project, I was like, okay, so I'm more interested in the person than the car now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm more interested in his story because that's, finding value in life and finding the meaning in life is something that I was struggling with.
Yes.
And this is where I kind of take my meaning from. I love meeting new people because when you meet new people, we share ideas, we learn new things about the world. Because there's no one in the world that knows everything about it.
Right, right.
And also everyone, it doesn't matter whether it's our parents, our grandparents, they might be 100 years old or whatever, but maybe they haven't figured out their lives yet either.
Right, right.
So there's no right or wrong way to live. And like a lot of the things I say, you don't have to listen to it. Who am I to you? If you think that my words are meaningful, then you can try and take my advice. If not, you don't have to listen. It's easy. That's how you should go about it. Because at the end of the day, make sure you're happy and you're content with what you're doing. Yes. And that's what I feel like a lot of people are missing. They think that, I got to impress this person. I got to impress that person. It's not like that. It's too tiring.
It's very tiring, but I also understand why. I'm from an entirely different generation than you. Mm-hmm. And then when you're talking about the next generation. Mm-hmm. So from my end, I'm actually thinking of two generations, yes. Right? And it's interesting because, I've never wanted to be the old guy, mm-hmm. Right? Who's over there like, stop making so much noise, youngsters, right? Mm-hmm. But I sit back and I've tried to really observe the evolution, right? Mm-hmm. Because technology, you don't have to like it, mm-hmm. You don't even have to understand it, but you have to accept it, right? Yes. It's gonna get faster and more voluminous, and mm-hmm. There's just gonna be more going on, right? And so instead of having a disdain for the new generation, mm-hmm. and these issues that we're talking about, I've tried to understand it, and mm-hmm. I've come to realize that I'm old enough to have been raised mm-hmm. with no one had cell phones. Mm-hmm. They didn't exist yet. Yep. Then cell phones, yes. Right? And then okay, well hold on. You jumped dramatically. I'm talking about cell phones. And then they were talking about this thing called the information superhighway, right? The World Wide Web is what they're going to call it. And we were all like, how are you supposed to connect to everyone using telephone lines, right? Okay. And then this thing called the internet became real, right, to the public. I grew up with that not even being a word. The word internet was not a word. I know. Right? None of these things were real, right? And so being in this generation where I was able to know what life was like without any of these things, and then to see them come into fruition, and not just see them from the whole like dial-up modems, but to then go from that to your T connections, to then now, of course, smartphones, Wi-Fi, which are really more supercomputers that happen to be a phone. Yes. Or have a phone on them. They're not phones, right? They're computers, supercomputers that happen to have the ability to make calls, right? That's what they are, right? The least of the functions is calling and receiving calls, okay? So you have the ability to look up or access almost the entirety of mankind's knowledge, right? But do you see people walking around learning trig on their phone? No, of course not. Do you see people walking around reading the classics? No. What are people doing with their phones?
Instagram.
If they are not consciously in control of their behavior, what they're doing is they are just ingesting information by a volume that man didn't even realize they could, at the speed at which they didn't even realize they could. And it's filled with a bunch of nonsense. Yep. Right? And so when you have your generation and the generation coming up, they're looking at, if you were on like Flickr or Tumblr, right? When you had time, if you had a computer, you could go and see the few people who had the time, a camera and a computer, to put it on the internet for you then to go look at photos. See how that process is drawn out? Yeah. Now anyone through any amount of basic filtration, can produce a more than half decent image just off their phone. I mean, these phone cameras are becoming fantastic, right?
Yep.
So what I'm saying is instead of me saying, oh, you guys are so impatient and you have no... I started to stop and be like, I knew what it was like before there was even such a thing as the internet, much less there was nothing about sitting there when AOL was dialing up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Okay, there was nothing about that made anyone angry.
Yeah.
Because you were anxious and excited to get on the internet. Nobody was sitting there like, hurry up, 56K, because that was just how you got on.
Yeah, that's how it worked.
That's how it worked. So instead of being mad about it, you were just like, yes. And once it connected, you were happy, right? Yeah. Now it's like, if it takes more than 1.5 seconds for a full page, like a full web page with flash and links to load, everyone's like, motherfucker, right? And they're all mad, right? Yeah. Or videos, if there's buffering, people want to throw their phone across the room. So I've been able to embrace that this is how you guys, and then even the younger generation are ingesting information. And so that's why I find it to be so toxic, because if you are trying to be into cars, right? Whether you're into imports, exotics, whatever, if you follow enough pages, you are going to be bombarded by the millisecond with new photos of new cars, new releases, new specs, new sound clips, racing videos, color changes, modification, as much as you could even remotely imagine, it's all there happening, and you're like, I haven't even bought the first part. Yeah. And before I buy the first part, then 7 million people have already changed their cars. Yep. That's why I feel bad for young women, because they are being bombarded with images of what they think they're supposed to look like at a younger and younger age, right? And that's why they never feel good enough. If you're trying to go to the gym and you follow all these muscular dudes' pages, right? Half of them aren't even they're not natural, right? Yeah. So you're like, I'm going to the gym, I'm eating meat, I'm eating, and I'm lifting, and I don't look like that. And so a lot of people, without even realizing it, you're chasing after an unrealistic reality. Yes. The internet is a hyper-real, surreal, version of reality.
It's a facade.
Right? And it's dangerous. Yes. So by helping people, by doing something like what you're doing, the premise of what I'm doing, it's to help people stabilize themselves. Yes. Because that's why people are so sad. If you're a 14-year-old girl and every picture you look at means you're supposed to have a certain ass to waist ratio and a certain curvature, and then by the time you start doing whatever you need to do, fucking waist trainers and teas and pills, and you get there, and by the time you get there, now you're supposed to have a fat ass. If you look back 7-8 years ago, girls were supposed to be thin. Yeah. Supermodels, the biggest models in the world, even to this day, they're all thin. And that's what girls wanted to be. They wanted to have eating disorders so girls could be thin.
Yeah, I remember that period.
Now, they want to be thick. Yes. Right? And some people are just not made that way. Some people don't have they don't have the money to buy a car, much less wide body it and turbo it. And they need to be okay with that and take their time in their manner, however they need to do it, whatever age they are, whatever their income is. So I think that these premises that you're touching on are valuable, very valuable, and in your way you can help to present that type of ideology, which is exactly what the Think Bigger Project's all about. Everything we do comes from the way that we think. It took you, your experiences, your depressions, overcoming it, falling back, overcoming it, and this cycle of learning and growing to kind of come to terms with certain things. And it changes your perspective is in your mind. Yes. That's why it's all about the way that you think. Yes. So the story times and giving the person behind the object. The object most likely is a car, but there's a person behind it, and there's a story behind it. So the premise of that, I think, is super cool, man. And I mean, I can't wait to see more of them.
Yeah, it's busy with life. But, the things that you talked about, like my generation is the 90s generation. So we were kind of, when we were first born, it's kind of that period where people were just getting phones, right? Cell phones or whatever. Yeah. But then at the time, like in Hong Kong, it was very popular in movies to have pagers. Okay. And then from there, it was like phones that were bigger than the size of a venti Starbucks cup. Sure. So those were the things that I saw. And then slowly it was like a CD player.
Yep. The Walkman.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. And then that's one of the first. Was it iPod came out, and then iPhone.
The iPod Touch. Everyone was like, "What is this? I can swipe through photos." Yeah,
that was like a flex back then.
Yeah,
right?
man.
So our 90s generation, we actually grew up through the most changes. We had to adapt to the environment changing. So I went through the same dial-up period. My dad bought a computer. My dad somehow figured it out. Like, I think my dad's super smart. Like, at the time, there was no internet to be like, hey, how do I put this together? How do I make this work? And AOL, MSN. We had to wait. We had to see if someone was online or not to chat with them. Like, now that you're talking about it, now I'm one of those people. I'm like, okay, it's taking half a second. I'm gonna throw my phone against the wall. Stop wasting my time. Like, but those were the days. So that's why I kind of get the younger generation too, because I have a generation gap with those kids now. Someone who's 19 or 18, I look at them, okay, I'm 6 years older, but maybe I have a lot more life experience, and maybe the environment I grew up in was different. Yeah, I can distinctly tell that they're very naive about this world. They're very, what do you call it? They think it's a very peaceful and wonderful place. Which, I mean, it's not bad. I envy those people because I wish I could be one of those people, but. In this sense, I'll let them know. I'll be like, if you're in school, enjoy the time you have in school, because when you have to come out into the real world, it's not the same. Yeah. School at the end of the day too is college. Another thing, one thing that people ask me about a lot is, what do I think of college? Yeah. If you don't know what you want to do in life, you can go to college. You can see if you like it or not. You can learn some stuff, and then maybe during the college period when you're not doing your major yet, you'll figure out what you want to do. Maybe not. If you don't want to, you can quit. It's fine. And if you have something that you want to do, make sure you prep for it before you go ahead and make the jump. Because a lot of people, me included, is that we've made the jump and we have no idea what we're getting into. And that's only going to lead to failure. And especially nowadays, smartphones. Like you said, everyone uses it for entertainment. We have the World Wide Web, which you didn't have back in the day. Like our parents' generation, your generation.
You could learn anything. Anything.
So nowadays, when I'm doing, when I'm editing videos and stuff, I wasn't originally a videographer. I didn't know anything about editing videos. I downloaded Premiere Pro, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah. YouTube, Google. Yep. Anytime I have a question, anytime I have something that I don't know, Google it. That's it. I don't have to ask anyone. I don't have to borrow anyone. Yeah. It's quick.
You put in your own amount of effort, and you will find the answers.
Yeah, it's there. There's so much stuff on the internet. You can read anything. And I didn't like reading books or anything before. Okay. But over the past 2 years, I'm like, books are $10 for someone's life lesson and life knowledge. And I read these books, and Renegade Motorsports up in Portland, he's actually played a big part in helping me with all this. So we actually had I kind of had a fallout. It's because I was immature, but there's something that, didn't work out. I didn't get the part that I wanted. I was supposed to be a demo car, But anyways, we came back together last year, sat down, talked everything. I apologized to him because I was wrong. I was immature. And he's been helping me. He's been making sure that I stay on track. He's been recommending me good books to read. And Nike. Everyone thinks that it is what it is today, right? But the CEO, the founder of Nike, had spent all his money, put all his time back into Nike to make it what it is today. Maybe after I think it was about 15 or 20 years when he actually made the break to have Jordan. That's when everything started blowing up. The Jordan brand, because Nike used to do running shoes, right? And now it's the empire that it is today. Yeah. But they don't understand that he literally put every single second, every single dime back into the company to make it what it was.
Yeah, nobody goes back that far to the one guy who said, I believe in this so much. It's kind of the more present day example would be Elon Musk, right? Mm-hmm. He gets all that money from, I think there's a meme that's on the internet where, he said he got X amount of dollars from PayPal, put X amount of that into SpaceX, X amount of it into another investment. It was this much into SpaceX, this much into Tesla, and I was broke. It was I got $200 million or something from PayPal, and I put 190 here and 10 million there, or 170, whatever, and I was broke and had to borrow money for rent. It's because he thought so strongly that he was willing to go from being a multi-hundreds of millions to broke again just to make it happen. And a lot of people, they don't understand exactly what that takes. Imagine winning the lottery and then someone telling you, okay, you went from broke to now having, I don't know, let's just use an easy number, $1 million. If you give me this $1 million, you'll make 10 in 10 years. You just have to figure out how the hell to survive for the next 10 years. Right? Most people would be like, well, I don't get it. How am I supposed to live for 10 years? You're going to be immensely richer, but you just have to, sleep, be homeless. There's a lot of people who, that kind of stuff is just a story to hear about. They don't understand that they will be faced with those decisions, not just once, multiple times in your life. And I think people don't realize that they say no to them all the time. Yeah. All the time.
It's like even me now coming down here, housing was not figured out. You know, I don't have any saving. Let's be honest and upfront. You know, I'm kind of couch surfing right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that, you know, I'm willing to take. That's how strongly I feel about story time and everything that I'm doing, and LA being the place to be. Ever since I landed in LA, you know, it is everything I imagined it to be. Everything else, like living or whatever, I could figure that stuff out. That's irrelevant to the bigger project, you know. And it's just, I believe in it so much. You know, I had a broken axle, you know. Who in their right mind would go down on a broken axle? I went through snow, I went through sand, I went through ice, I went through everything in a sports car. I could fit my camera case, a tripod, my, you know, one suitcase, and a backpack, and that was it.
Yeah, that's all the S2000 is going to hold.
Yeah, and, you know, and a couple pairs of shoes. And I said, this is how bad I want it. This is how bad I want to make my dream and goal happen before 30. Because I'm down here.
Yeah, so 25, right? And all of what you just described, I'm going to go do it regardless. So you drive 23 hours, you get here, and you are in the middle of making all of these plans happen.
Yes. So every day for the past 2 weeks since I've been here, I've been dealing with the rental stuff, car dealership stuff, meeting people, networking, going to the Super Street and Total Tires meet.
Yeah.
You know, I've made time for all these things. Maybe every day I'm sleeping 3 or 4 hours, or maybe even that day I don't even know where I was sleeping yet. But that's all irrelevant to me because I know what I'm here for. It's a very clear motive, like family first, family in mind, and nothing's going to stop me. And, you know, obviously that's a very selfish goal for me. But the thing is, during the time that I'm making this money, or where this money is going to come from, the purpose is that you're supporting this project to make it bigger, to influence even more people. So my audience is I'm not going to be a super big YouTuber that has like 2 or 3 million or 4 million subscribers like some of these other automotive guys, because that's not my goal. Because there was a book that I read that said, set goals. So say I want to affect 500 people today.
Yes.
If I can affect 500 people today, then I've made my goal.
Correct.
So tomorrow I can try 1,000.
Yes.
Because if you think I want to influence everyone in the world, you're never going to reach your goal and you're never going to feel good. You're only going to feel disappointed and demotivated. And so that's kind of how I'm working about it now. I'm working slowly, whether it's one person at a time, whether it's going to an event and someone shouts me out or helps me get some more followers or subscribers or more attention. I'm doing it. I'm doing everything. It doesn't matter if you're rich. It doesn't matter if you're poor. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter about any of those things. You know, if I have to do it 1% at a time, I'll do it 1% at a time.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that, man. It's not about how many, it's about how deeply.
Yes.
Right? It's the impact. Because if you could reach 1 million people and 1,000 of them respond, look at your ratio, right?
Yep.
But if you reach 1,000 people and 700 respond, you're in a far better position,
yes.
you know, because you're deeply affecting and that many people. So I'm with you on that, man. I mean, like, once again, we talked about this era of social media. These numbers are so grandiose. If you don't get 10 million views on a video, it didn't go viral enough. Now, before, people are just trying to get views. Yeah. Then a couple people go viral, and they're like, I want to go viral. Now, you cannot go viral enough. If it hits 1 million, it's like, man, that's cool, but that's not, look at this one. And you're just like, dude, at some point, there's going to be people who are getting billions, and then the millions will not even be good enough, right?
Yep.
And that's this perpetual cycle. And so being grounded, self-awareness, right? Knowing who you are, that's the most important thing, because then once you get to that position of strength and comfort within yourself as a person, the world can't hurt you like that. They can't you can't be disappointed, and pessimism starts to become a little bit more difficult.
Yes,
you know, it's not for everyone, right? Not everyone's going to be an optimist. Not everyone's going to be a pessimist. But being able to at least have an understanding of your surroundings and what's really going on, instead of just having the wool always being over your eyes, you know? So I think it's great that you're a living, breathing example. I mean, I saw people talking to you at the meet, right? And, you know, obviously the people who do follow you on, you know, let's say IG, you know, that's what, 20-something thousand. I mean, it's kind of a laughable number compared to others, but when you actually stop, that's a lot of damn people, right? And so it's great that you're getting recognized but being recognized is one thing, but being recognized for something positive.
Yes.
Even if it's something as simple as, I really enjoy your photography, which is a form of art, or I really enjoy your car, or I watched just one of the story times. I really liked your style, the angle, right? Any one or all of the above are amazing compliments, and those are all things that you're getting.
Yes.
And I think that it's great to see that because of the idea behind it, the reasoning behind it. And so that's why I applaud you for it.
Thank you. And I mean, you support me too. I mean, like, a lot of times when I follow people, who have, 20-odd thousand or 30-odd thousand, like, I don't expect them to follow me back.
Sure.
I'm just here to watch their progression, watch their project, and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because, I want to see people do good. Like, why can't everyone succeed,
Sure.
There's so much money, there's so many things in the world,
Sure.
I don't get why the competition is so stiff. But there are, if it seems arrogant or whatever, there are a lot of people that I'm not going to work with down here. I'm going to put that very blatantly.
Oh, for sure.
Because you're putting out an image that is not what I want to be viewed as. So there are certain things, certain channels or certain whatevers that I will not show up on because of the misinformation, because of, you're misguiding the people. You're, in my eyes, it's not really making the world a worse place, but you could be doing better. You could be doing, like, more meaningful things with what you have. And so I have a very, like, solid mindset of what I want to do and how I want to go about it down here. And like I said, okay, like followers, you're talking about it, 26,000, right? That's, we think about it, that's actually a lot.
It is.
But the thing is, that number, like, one follower, okay, so I can say you have one new follower, but you don't know who that person could be. It could be a fake bot.
Sure.
Or it could be Bill Gates.
Sure.
You see? So it's like that, back to the idea of a pencil. You could have 10 pens that have no ink, but you have 10 pens. Or you can have one pen that has full ink.
Yes.
So it's the same thing. People have to think about it that way. But people don't. They think the numbers mean something.
They think the numbers mean something. It doesn't. It's true. I mean, like, if they were to do a sweep that, like, sensed out bots, everyone's counts would just drop.
Yeah.
Because we don't pay attention to it like that. Especially the bigger the number gets, you don't see each one and you don't know. And that's kind of all goes into this whole kind of idea behind you have to take the internet and social media with a grain of salt.
Yes.
Real is real. Your real life and the people around you are real. What's on your phone is on your phone. And people cannot treat it the same way. There's a relativity to what you can allow to affect you, And so, whether you take something as horrible as the loss of a loved one, right? And of course, when it's a celebrity that people know, it seems to affect people more deeply. But you would never know if John Doe over here in the corner, if his parent just passed away, because he doesn't have a voice to tell you, right? But that's going to break him far more than some celebrity, right? So, I mean, you always have people come together at marriages and funerals, right? In families, it's always family and friends that you don't see at someone's marriage and at someone's funeral, right? And so if we spend more time spending time with each other and being good to each other before someone's gone, right, the world would be a much better place, right? And that sounds pretty like broad and philosophical, and we were just talking about cars, but at the same time, the automotive industry and culture has such a broad demographic of people. And, that's the world that we come from, and to see people, I mean, I'm almost 10 years on you, and then someone 10 years younger than you is 15, they're about to get their first car or something like that. So in two and a half generations, right? We have people who have done it before me, then me, did it before you, and you're doing it before them, and each one can help the other to come up properly, because there's all kinds of people who are putting out stuff to guide you in the wrong direction. So for you and people like myself that are actively trying to better the community, and you were just saying there's people that you will not work with, because the way they carry themselves, the type of vibe, the information they put out, you're like, I want nothing to do with it. And so I don't know why that's such a sensitive subject to some people. It's you choosing to not align yourself with a person or a business. And I think that's respectable, that you know what or who that you do not vibe with. So it's great, because other people, if they don't know how to discern that, if they don't have a moral compass or an ethical boundary, they're gonna just anywhere. Attention, sound, all eyes on me. That's where this whole narcissism thing comes from. So I think it's great that you've drawn a line with who I don't even know who you're talking about, and I don't need to. With whoever and wherever you've decided you will not, and who you will work with, and on all of your journeys, I think that you have the right frame of mind for the potential for a great success.
And it's like, I could be a sellout, like if all I wanted was money, I could go ahead and go contact these people and work with them, and immediately I would gain X amount of subscribers, X amount of followers, whatever. But that doesn't mean anything to me.
Sure.
And another thing when you said was, take social media with a grain of salt. how I think about it is that you should take what anyone says with a grain of salt, unless you truly know who they are, and well, for a majority of the part.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of people out there that they think they know everything. So that's why they're spreading misinformation. For me, it's like when you ask me about a certain topic or a certain subject, I'm gonna be like, hey, this is my experience. May not be accurate to you, may not be true, but this is what I've heard and what I've learned.
Sure.
So whether you believe it is up to you.
Sure.
So because I don't want to spread any misinformation. It might be different from what a professional says or whatever, but this is just what I've learned and what I think. Maybe I'm wrong, And another thing is, like my dad had always told me this when I was younger. He said, it doesn't matter if you don't like what someone is saying. Always listen, because you never know if you can learn something from them. Because you can, put it into your own thought pattern and make your own kind of like mindset.
Yes.
Because for me, my parents are from Hong Kong, so Hong Kong's culture is different from China. And I went to school here in the U.S.
Yes.
And I've been around, all kinds of cultures.
Yes.
Whether it's from other Asian countries, whether it's with African Americans, whether it's with Caucasian people, whatever, It doesn't matter what skin color you are as long as you treat me like a person. Because at the end of the day, we all bleed the same. We all die. That's, what we are, right? And so, a lot of people think, like, their mindset's just, they need to think bigger.
Yes.
That's the only way to put it.
It's the truth.
Me, I don't have a certain culture that I identify solely with, because I'm a mix of cultures. This is what America is.
Yeah.
So my mindset is very open. So when a lot of Chinese people meet me, they feel like, oh, you're not like a regular Chinese person, but you're not really like the American-born Chinese that I think you are.
Sure.
So another thing is that a lot of American-born Chinese don't like to hang out with fobs, or what we call fresh off the boat, which is like the mainland Chinese people or whatever, because they kind of like discriminate against each other.
Yes.
But I'm like, what's the point? We all bleed the same. We're all people at the end of the day. It's just something stupid that I kind of want to change too, because I want to change the perception of what an American-born Chinese is.
Sure.
Obviously, with the TV shows, and now even some of the stuff in like movies, and it's like I feel like it's not like showing the right image. It's not showing the right idea, and I believe that's they're.
Do you mean specifically to your culture and upbringing and things like that, or in general?
In general.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of things that, unfortunately have become whitewashed. It's not true to the culture, whether it's Chinese culture, whether it's American-born Chinese people's, lives, or whether it's, the Mexican culture, or whatever, There's always a misinterpretation, because when it's translated to art, when it's translated to a movie, you got to appeal to the general public, because all they want is money.
It's Hollywood. They make it Hollywood.
Yeah, they make it Hollywood.
Yeah.
And another thing is school. The only place that I find value in school is if you come across good teachers and good professors, good people that actually care about you. Because first and foremost, school is a business. All they want is your money. They don't care whether or not you're going to do good in the future. What public schooling came to be was a way to make sure that you kids stayed off the streets. Get out of our way. We can train you to become a sheep. Whatever we teach you during your 18 years of like your first 18 years of life, you're going to listen, you're going to believe, you're going to eat it up, because you don't know any better. And so that's why so when I think of the term 1% and 99%, I don't think about it like monetarily. I think about it like 99% of people who have a brain but don't know how to use it, and the 1% who excel in using their brain. Because that's how I view the world. It's very sad, but even in day-to-day things, it's like, something I don't know how to do. I have a smartphone.
Yes.
Look it up.
Yes.
And most people don't do that. One thing that bugs me a lot is when people ask me for like a build list or something, or like ask me about my car. I don't really like talking about cars and my car so much. Okay. Because a lot of times is that if you want to know it so bad, you can read. I have a banner that says Jay's Racing. Maybe you can Google what that is.
Well, I mean, look, dude, that's like the jokes online that used to come from Craigslist ads. Like, I'm selling this for this price. Here's the number, and it's at this address. And you'll get all of the emails that are like, how much is it? Yes. How do I contact you? And you're just like, everything is in the ad. Yes. Or you make a post on Instagram. It's in the caption. But then when they just look at the photo, if it's not in the photo, they're going to ask you, but it was in the caption. Yes. Right? That's the world that we live in. You got people who are lazy, where they have every piece of information they could need accessible. May not be in front of their face, but it's accessible, So there's so many things. We're talking about culture, car culture, immigrant culture, American culture, entrepreneurial culture, right? All of these different cultures, and everyone of any age is going to relate to one or all of those, right? So, for anyone and everyone listening, knowing that this is a very diverse group, right? Whoever you want to direct it to, if you had one thing to tell people, right, who have no idea who you are, but you want to leave just one gift to them, right, as far as knowledge-wise, advice-wise, one thing, what would it be?
I think that would be to cherish the time that you have with the people you love now, because it doesn't matter who it is. Life is a very fragile thing. And through my journey, and I actually didn't touch about it, it was back in 2015, I actually lost 2 close family members. So one was my mom's mom, so my grandma on my mom's side, and we knew that it was coming, that it was her time to go. And we had a falling out, for about 10 years because of drama in the family, this and that. And at the time I was young, I didn't really understand. But now I understand it more. And that time when she passed away, that was the start to me crying the most in the span of 1 month. Because shortly thereafter, one of my uncles in Hong Kong had passed away very suddenly. And when my dad had called me to tell me about it, I didn't understand what was happening. I was like, who? Because I haven't seen him in over 10, 15 years,
Sure.
But, he was important to my family. He was my dad's little brother. He's my grandma's son. My sister's uncle. He took care of my sister. He took care of everyone that I loved. That was family to me. And so it didn't matter how, we weren't that close, physically. I had to go back to Hong Kong with my parents. And my sister at the time had broken her leg or her foot, and so she couldn't come back with us. And my sister is 6.5 years older than me, so I rely on her quite a bit. And so during that time back in Hong Kong, I had cried probably at least 10, 15 times because of just all the emotions and having to take care of my family and, my dad, my grandma.
And the loss of a person that you weren't talking to.
Yes. Because it doesn't matter, because he's family. As long as he loves the ones that love me and takes care of the people around me, then he's important to me.
Okay.
So cherishing that time is very important. So this is how everything fell together, because I know that my dad has regrets in his life.
Yes.
I don't want to have the same regrets. I don't want to, if I can make sure that he doesn't have regrets when he goes too, that's great. And just cherishing it. And, and since then, it's been hard. For the next 5 years, I didn't cry once. Because it didn't matter how hard it got. I just couldn't. Even if I had the emotion of wanting to cry, I couldn't. It's weird. And so cherishing the people around you, because it's
while you have them. There, you guys, as you can see, it went from cars, traveling, business, internet, and it ends on something as powerful as cherishing the time that we have with our loved ones, because you don't know how much more time you have. You never know. And you can read all the inspirational quotes you want. You can repost all of the inspirational quotes you want about cherish every moment and love your loved ones and all that. But you need to actually do it.
Yes.
And there's a lot of pride. There's a lot of stuff to swallow. And you've just got to put aside your pride and just, if you're arguing with them or you don't want to talk to them, just get over it. If you love them, if they're important to you, no matter what they did, if you're mad at them, that's it right there. Cullen says, cherish the time that you have with your loved ones. I'm always encouraging interaction, right? So this podcast is going to be available on my personal Instagram. You guys who are listening, if 1 or 2 or 100 things that you heard, you like, you dislike, you agree with, you disagree with, let's continue the conversation in the comments, right? If you're listening on YouTube as well, I'm going to tag Cullen. You'll be able to see, for the listeners who want to go see what Cullen's all about, his YouTube, his Instagram, all of that will be available. And, take the time to look and follow and listen and interact and share your thoughts. And if any of those things that we talked about now are things that have affected you or made sense, or you want, him to elaborate more or me to touch on, the only way we can do that is if you tell us. So that's what social media has the power to do, is bring people together. That's what the Think Bigger project's all about. That's what the Think Bigger podcast is all about. And as you guys can see, some of the premises of what Cullen's doing are on the same lines as bettering the community and the world around us. So, Cullen, thank you for being a guest.
Thank you, Mike.
Everyone who's listening, I will make sure you guys have his information and just take the time. Take the time to interact, and we can all grow together, okay? So, Think Bigger Project, Think Bigger Podcast. Thank you guys. We'll see you on the next one.